Good afternoon, I'm Russ Jehl Electric. I'm the 2nd District City Council Representative, and I'm honored to be joined by our at-large City Council Representative, Dr. John Crawford. And I just want to thank you all for coming and attending this. I will try to make it very brief, and have intentionally scheduled it to be at 5 o'clock so that we can promptly get to the council meeting on time. The topic of discussion today is GE Electric Works, and as most of you know, today I have delivered a letter outlining a series of concerns and suggestions for the administration regarding GE Electric Works, and I will share those details with you, and also the reason that I have asked that that letter be publicized. My role as a council member is to facilitate an open, transparent discussion about GE Electric Works. And it's time for some straight talk when it comes to GE. The details on a project of this magnitude matter tremendously. And I have been asking about details and making suggestions to the administration consistently for the last couple of months. Notably, I sent 3 letters in early April, and I'm still waiting for a response to those. So, because GE Electric Works and those negotiations continue, I'm putting my provisions directly into the public forum by writing this letter and then sharing it directly with the public. To date, almost all of the discussion around GE Electric Works has been around the $65 million potential investment. But really, that's only the tip of the iceberg. I note several other issues that need to be addressed on behalf of the public. And without those, I don't think that we are able to make an educated decision as to whether this is good for the public or not. In that letter, the primary items that I outlined, I'll give you just a short rundown of them. But first of all, is that we need a complete list of infrastructure improvements and their costs associated with the project. It's very important because most of the public thinks that the only cost that we're discussing is that $65 million number. But really what we're talking about is $65 million plus infrastructure, plus tax credits, plus tax abatements. And when you add all of those up, it's possible that we could be pushing closer to $100 million, not $65 million. Second of all, any savings below the initial development estimate should be returned to the taxpayer. That's only common sense. If the taxpayer is an investor, if there are ways to save money, and if there are ways that this comes in under budget, then the taxpayer should be given back a proportional amount of their investment. The developer's fee should be escrowed so the developer's money is exposed along with the taxpayers. This makes plenty of sense because we all, as a partner, public-private partnership, we expect the private sector to have skin in the game on this. And so, insofar as the public's money will be invested, we expect that the private money not be able to be pulled out before stabilization. Also, given the size of this project and its complexity, it would be wise to create a panel of developers and real estate experts from our local talent pool to give further insight to the deal terms. They can answer questions, for example, of whether this project at $300 a square foot is in line with market construction costs. With that, I want to thank Councilman Ensley for joining me. So here we have a wide variety of perspectives on council, but we're all united in this message, which is the most important thing is not that this project works for the developer. The most important thing is that anything that's done here works first for the taxpayer, and the details matter. And so I thank these 2 gentlemen for joining me with that message that we work for the taxpayer, and this project definitely needs the taxpayer to be championed. So with that, I would be more than happy to take any questions.
Well, you're talking about more studies. We just had one last week. saying that the market could support X dollars per square foot. If I heard you right, you're suggesting the need for another one. And also there's...
If you want to clarify, in what sense? Or which, suggesting another study? No, which point are you suggesting that I study further?
I thought you mentioned you wanted another study to talk about square foot costs and things like that.
Oh, I think that is able to be answered within our local real estate talent pool right now. And I suggest an advisory panel of local real estate developers. I don't think that there's anyone, including working on this project right now on behalf of the city, that has ever worked on a project quite like this. But collectively, we have several very good developers that are very familiar with every issue that I brought up and every issue that's being negotiated and can give us further insight. And very specifically, I don't know anyone that can say, hey, right now, what are new construction costs? Is $300 a square foot in line? An advisory panel could do that very quickly without a study. Yes.
Russ, Kevin was referring to, I guess, the RCL code, is that RL?
Yeah, the market demand study.
Which was commissioned by the developers. On the other, which makes little questionable.
Well, and vetted by the CIB, though.
One would think. Vetted,
yeah.
And then the mayor supposedly has a working group on this. Has the working group not been doing their own assessment of or evaluation of the viability of this project and the costs that would be associated with it?
Well, I have two gentlemen joining me. Do any of you want to address that before I do? Or?
Everybody seems to want to address it.
Anyway, I just want to share the Q&A with you since you're here with me. But let me say this. A major reason why I am putting this out into the public forum directly is because to this point I have only had one briefing from the administration about Jehl Electric Works. So insofar as your question kind of underlies the premise that I am in the loop and that there's communication from the administration to council, that is not the case, and that is the reason why, after asking that these items be incorporated in negotiations, not knowing where we're at, but knowing that time is passing, why I'm inviting the public to dialogue with me as I again approach the administration on these points.
In short, you're for the public.
Well, I think the public needs. I think if you went out and asked the public how much the prospective investment is right now, I bet those that are paying attention, most would probably say $65 million, and that's just not the case. So we're, as a community, grappling with whether we should do a project or not do a project that we don't even know what the cost is. And insofar as there is a cost, it's not a real cost. And so I think that we need an open and transparent dialogue. And at the very least, my goodness, why don't we have the infrastructure costs yet? Are those a couple million? Are they over 10 million? One council member suggested that we might have to build a parking garage. I don't know. I haven't. No one has given me any details on that, despite requesting that in early April.
And my point in the last several months has been we're several months behind where we should be getting those answers to Russ, and we've been trying to put a little more pressure on the administration to have the Redevelopment Commission fully engage. They're working, as we speak, on a development agreement which will contain many of the details that Russ needs to see before he even decide if he's for it or against it. And the reason I'm standing up here is Councilman Jehl is very, very astute financially, more than I. And he is trying to find a way to yes, but he has to have these answers to know if it's a good yes or not. So I applaud him trying to get more and more answers as quick as we can.
Well, Russ, point out that the administration hasn't given answers. Are some of these answers also not incumbent upon the developers to provide?
Sure.
Is it just the administration or?
Sure, but I think if you look at my letter, there aren't very many info questions. They're really policy questions that have to do with negotiation. So yeah, I would love it if the developer would provide us more information more quickly. That would be great. But as far as protecting the taxpayer in negotiations and identifying those points, those are easy to do even without full details or day-to-day updates on the developer's plans.
And you're comfy with these questions, Paul?
Certainly.
And if they were answered, you could vote for it then perhaps? If the question is.
Depends what the answers are.
It certainly does depend on what the answers are. So.
And this has been your signature issue so far, or concern, let me rephrase that. A signature concern of yours, interest, the development of the GE facility into electric works.
I mean, I think it's a very exciting concept. I hope it gets done, and we just need to work diligently to get the details.
All these questions are not bogging you down, which.
I don't think we're going to have 6 votes unless these questions get answered pretty quickly. And you ask, well, maybe the developer should do it. They're both, a development agreement is just that. They both are negotiating, and something will come out of that, and something will go back to the Legacy Review Committee, a specific proposal. They looked at it, but it was kind of a work in progress, wasn't it, Paul?
That's right, yes.
So a lot of the details have to be filled in.
Yeah. Ultimately, I'm looking for a business case to be made, and these questions, the only way that this gets bogged down is if questions are answered later rather than sooner.
Right.
We saw what happened when council was put behind the 8 ball at North River. By putting them out there now, I'm hoping to avoid a similar situation that is completely avoidable.
Right.
And I think that's best. I think that's just good policy.
Right.
It also ultimately, if the administration knows where I stand, their position is strengthened when they negotiate with the developer, because the developer knows that they do have to get council support.
Right.
And they need 6 votes for the legacy money.
That's correct.
And as Parker says, without the legacy money, the deal doesn't work.
Correct.
So another, and you're in the middle. You haven't made a decision yet. You and Michael Miranda, 2 against, philosophically, 4 or 5.
I don't know that I
Right.
said from the beginning that I think that, that the GE project is a good candidate for legacy funds. It's certainly a transformational project where perhaps legacy can provide some stopgap financing. But again, as I said at the legacy meeting, until we have a specific proposal and specific numbers and have the rest of the capital stack in place, one of the guiding principles of legacy is to always be the last dollar in and not to be used as seed money to go find the rest of your funding. You come to legacy after you have the rest of your funding in place.
Specific proposal sounds like Josh Parker. I mean, if he hasn't provided a proposal yet, it makes it hard to figure out what they're asking.
Well, all roads have to go through the redevelopment commission. In other words, that's where the development agreement's going to come out of. And the developer will put his 2 cents in, administration, CIB, county. Eventually something will come to us specific, but we need to get on with it, that's all.
And Jim, I don't necessarily start off with believing that that if diligent negotiations were to take place, that we would have to break the bank when it comes to legacy. I just don't think that all of the funds and all of the possibilities have been thoroughly explored yet. Seed money, to the best of my knowledge, has not been explored. Ledge, to the best of my knowledge, has not been explored. And we saw what happened with new market tax credits. There are other funding sources that good, diligent negotiation and introspection could result in alleviation of how heavy request legacy is made. Again, that requires collaboration from all of us and not just a one-sided monologue here.
Parker has, I think, at the forum jointly hosted by Kevin Lynch, or maybe it was Kevin Davis at lunch or something, said that the reason that they won $65 million from the city is that's how much they need to from private investors, they would have to provide such a return on investment that it wouldn't be economically feasible to develop the facility. In other words, they need free money. So is there another source of free money out there?
Well, they at least have to match the 50 from the state to get the 50 from the state.